Tamerlane, also known as Tamerlane, was the founder of the Timurid Empire in the 14th century. He was a conqueror, undefeated commander, and one of the greatest strategists in history. So it's no surprise that he loved to play chess. According to his biography, he preferred to play great chess rather than the chess with which we're more familiar. Great chess is an expanded version of regular chess, and because of Timur's passion for it, it's known as Tamerlane chess. Tamerlane chess is played on a 10 by 11 squared board. There are two additional squares called citadels. So, unlike regular chess with its 64 squares, Tamerlane chess has 112 squares. Let's take a look at the pieces, setups, and rules of Tamerlane chess. The king or Shah can move one step in any direction like a traditional king. The councillor or furs moves one square diagonally. The governor or vizier moves one square horizontally or vertically. The giraffe or zarafa moves one square diagonally and then a minimum of 3 squares horizontally or vertically. It can't jump over any pieces in its path. The camel or shutur moves in an L shape like a knight in regular chess, but 3 by 1 squares instead of 2 by 1. It can jump over any pieces in its path. The siege engine or dababa moves 2 horizontal or vertical squares. It can jump over any pieces in its path. The scout or talia moves like a bishop in traditional chess, but must move a minimum of 2 squares and can't jump over pieces in its path. The elephant or peel moves 2 squares diagonally and can jump over pieces in its path. The prince and adventitious king move one step in any direction like an ordinary king. The rook and knight move as in traditional chess. The pawns move like the pawns in traditional chess, but with no initial double move or en passant capture. Also, every piece on the board has its own pawn. There are different opening setups for Tamerlane chess. The most common one is known as the masculine array. The goal, as in ordinary chess, is to checkmate the opposing king, but unlike in normal chess, stalemating an opponent is a win. Also, there's no castling in Tamerlane chess. If one of the pawns reaches the opponent's first line, the corresponding piece can return to the game. For example, if the pawn of an elephant reaches the first line of the opponent, an elephant returns to the game. However, when a pawn of the king reaches the first line, it becomes a prince. The prince can be considered as a king. In order to win the game, there must be only one royal piece. If both a prince and a king exist simultaneously on the board, it can be thought of as if there are 2 kings on the board. In this situation, in order to win the game, one of the 2 must be captured, like a regular piece. Then a check or checkmate can be done. If a pawn of pawns reaches the first line of the opponent, it remains immobile and can't be captured by the opponent. When a situation occurs that either a pawn of pawns threatens 2 pieces at once, or threatens one piece that can't escape, it moves to that square. If a pawn of pawn reaches the first line of the opponent a second time, it moves immediately onto the starting square of the king's pawn. If a pawn of pawns reaches the first line of the opponent a third time, it becomes an adventitious king that moves, like a king, one step in any direction. On the board there are two extra squares named citadels. When a king moves onto the opponent's citadel, the game is drawn. There's only one piece that can enter its own citadel, the adventitious king. If an adventitious king enters its own citadel, it becomes immune and blocks the opponent king from entering the citadel, thereby preventing the opponent from declaring a draw. If a player has a prince or an adventitious king on the board and the player's king enters the opponent's citadel, the king can trade places with either of those pieces and the game continues. The prince or adventitious king can later move out of the citadel to make way for the king to enter again, but the exchange can be done only once. During the game, once only, a checked king can switch places with a non-royal piece. Unlike in modern chess, there's no threefold repetition or 50-move draw rule in Tamerlane chess. So, Tamerlane chess, it's much more complicated and harder to play.